Hello again and welcome back to the channel. I do apologize for how long it has been since the last video. I'd meant to just take a small little break there for the holidays, but winter hit here in Michigan. It was pretty snowy, pretty dang cold. And if you remember right, I was trying to get a new garage built there right at the end of fall, but due to some shady contractors and just other issues, it did not end up happening. Ended up spending a whole lot of money getting trees cleared out in a hurry and rushed for absolutely nothing because of that. So got a little bit frustrated and it just made it impossible for me to do work. As you can see, I've just got stuff kind of crammed in here everywhere. The poor Heelys just kind of turned into storage, hiding out. The AA here is just kind of full of stuff as well, but we're back. Weather is turning around just a little bit, and well, we are going unicorn hunting today for another one of these. We're going looking for the older brother to this, a 29 AA Express. Now, I've talked about this truck here, my 30 AA, quite a bit on the channel. It is nowhere near original, just kind of a hodgepodge of parts here. It's got different axles both in the front and rear. Obviously, we got the V8 flathead engine in there that is mounted absolutely terrible. Going to be a whole series on just trying to fix this truck, get this thing all dialed back in, because I do love this thing. For the bed back here, this was an original AA Express, but the bed was pretty rotted out. Someone found a double T box, just kind of made things work together. So this is primarily a double T box. The easiest way to tell that difference is the rails. The rails for the bed itself will be straight instead of tapered, so they do not follow the actual frame on the double T's versus the double A's. Then they have this long stake pocket here, which usually interferes with the fenders. The very early double A's actually had the fenders where they were notched, where this stake pocket would go around them. Then the D2 fenders kind of didn't have that anymore and were just a regular fender, and they came up with a shorter stake pocket. So you can modify these beds and actually cut them up and turn them into the A-style bed, but never really wanted to do that with this truck because it's just not that close to original. I did want to try to find some real AA fenders and get them on here, but the ones I always find are for the earlier years where the splash apron has a kind of smoother transition. This one here is like the third revision of the fenders, and that splash apron has a really sharp bend to it. So very, very hard to find those later fenders. I just can't bring myself to cut up the ones that I've got just yet. So I always keep my eye out for parts for these, just trying to get this thing closer to original, try to find the fenders, stuff like that. And by chance, I happen to have stumbled across a nearly complete 29 AA Express with the fenders, all of the small little components sitting in a barn. And that is what we are going to go pick up today. It's about 5 hours away, so it's going to be a little bit of a drive. It's pretty early in the morning here. We're going to head out and hopefully load up and bring it back home. They definitely do not get much more barn find than this. A Model A in a barn with a horse.
A horse, of course.
Now, I've been told this guy's a little bit grumpy, so I'm not going to get too close. But he's a good looking guy.
He gonna bite you.
Yep. Try to keep my distance on him, but yeah, the definitive barn find Model A. Everything more or less complete, even though it's mostly in pieces, but it is all here. A lot to go through. Yeah, there's a bunch more hardware here. Hinges, I think. There are the headlights that he mentioned. Here's the visor that was missing. Quite a bit of stuff. Yeah, this is the tire that's going to be a bit fun over here. It looks like he might have got a little bit of air in there, but it's a little bit off the rim. That's going to be a bit fun. I'm not sure if maybe we'll just bungee all this like internal stuff together in here before we go, and maybe put a tarp over the top there to make sure it doesn't bounce around, but pretty impressive. So it is many hours later. It took us a long time to get this thing on here because, as you can see, we have one very flat tire and we have a very stuck axle. I think the transmission just might be stuck in gear, something of the sort. Was not able to get it rotating, got the brakes all freed up. So essentially what we had to do is put a dolly under this wheel here, pull it along, and essentially, because the differential is working and the brakes aren't locked up, this wheel here would spin backwards, push the dolly out the front, the other side would just rotate normally, and that finally got it on here. And as you can see, they barely fit on these U-Haul trailers. But yeah, everything is here. We got most of the excess parts loaded up in the actual truck. We are going to try to hit the road. It is going to be a long drive back. It is going to get dark quick. We will take a much closer look at it all there, but I mean, this thing is extremely complete. Very solid, very minimal rust for the most part. I can't really see any holes in the box. A couple of problems where like some of the bolt holes for the fenders are, stuff like that. A little bit of welding work right through here. That shouldn't be too bad to fix up, but the box itself is in a remarkable condition. The doors, they always need repair, but not too bad. Cowl is starting to show its age, but pretty dang solid overall. So we are loaded up and we are heading out. The AA has made it back home. I do apologize for the wind noise and the road noise. Being on the highway here, got a lot of traffic coming by. So it ended up being quite the adventure. It took us around 18 hours to get there, get the truck loaded, and get back home. I apologize that I didn't get more footage actually on site. The gentleman that I bought the truck from was not feeling well, and I did not want to put him out any longer than what was absolutely necessary. I'd already felt terrible that it took us 5 hours to get this thing loaded. So I didn't want to waste any more time by just trying to record, do any of that sort of stuff. So we've got it home, got it off the trailer. That was a chore all by itself. Ended up getting my neighbor to come over, hook up his truck. We just kind of pulled it down, put it on the dollies there, but I believe our high-low unit here is stuck. When I got this off the trailer, I saw some water dripping out of it, which has me a bit concerned, but it is what it is. For right now, the truck is just pretty much stuck where it is until I can get it rolling. I'll possibly see about just pulling that high-low out of there, pull the drive shaft, something like that, just see if I can get it to roll on its own. But it seemed like the transmission was actually shifting okay, so maybe if we just kind of open some things up, get some evapor rust inside of those things, get some of that rust cleaned out and flushed out, maybe it'll start to roll on its own. We'll see, but let's take a closer look at the truck overall. Everything seems to be in really good condition. There is just very minimal rust. I tried to point out some of this quickly while we were on site, but now we could take a bit more of a deep dive here. The doors are probably the worst part along the bottom edge. This one's probably salvageable, except somebody caved this thing in at some point in time. Thankfully, as you saw, it's pretty easy to get to the back of these. Shouldn't be any kind of problem pushing that out, getting that all smoothed back out again. Running boards, splash aprons, fantastic shape. I do love the little luggage rack things here. Definitely gonna get that cleaned up, probably powder coat that, keep it around just because they're kind of cool. They were on a lot of the old Model A's. I think it's just a cool little period correct piece there. If you come up towards the front here, the fenders, great shape. This one doesn't have any dents, dings, cracks anywhere in it that I could find. Passenger side had one little crack right there, nothing too severe. Should be able to weld that back up really easily. Same thing over here with the running board, splash aprons, very good condition. On this side we had a little bit worse of rust starting to come through in the cowl there. Gonna have to get to that, probably gonna have to put in a patch right there. It is coming through pretty bad. The door here certainly is gonna need a patch. That is pretty chewy. Really not what you want to see, but not terribly bad as well. The cab corners themselves, seem to be in great condition. This right here, the spare wheel carrier, looks to be the incorrect one. It is simply too tall. It should be about a foot and a quarter. And this one looks like it's somewhere around like 15, 16 inches, somewhere around there, which was usually what they used for the driver's side when they were mounted in the front. So it'd be the tire being mounted up here in this area right in front of the door, just on the driver's side. And a lot of people would take these, kind of modify them up, kind of cut them down short or heat them up and bend them to the shape it needs to be. But I'm not too concerned about that, because I do believe that he has the correct mount and full assembly for this in all of the spare parts that we took out of the back of this thing. I saw one that was quite a bit shorter. It did have the correct disc style, like actual hub here for it as well. It had the portion that mounts to the frame. So I don't think we'll have to modify this one at all. I think we can just clean up the other one and we'll be good to go there. In the back here, we've got a full set of these green, kind of nicer condition wire spoke rims. Got a couple of rusty, crusty ones here that are probably a bit too far gone, and maybe they could be cleaned up and salvaged, but I don't think I'll end up using those. I'm going to stick with the discs, which are the correct for this car. This one looks to be in pretty poor condition there, so I'll probably start by getting this rim here cleaned up, blasted, powder coated. It looks to be in pretty good condition, just kind of on cursory inspection. Get some new rubber, get this wheel at least up where it's on something inflated. Now I do have the missing hubcap for that. That is in the spare pieces, which we'll look at in just a little bit. So the bed itself seems to be in pretty good condition. Tailgate looks fantastic. Side panels, very, very minimal rust overall. Can't really see in the floor because it's kind of got this plywood down over the top here. So I don't know if the strips are actually in here or not. Those are getting harder and harder to come by, but if need be, I can just kind of recreate or replicate those. What did concern me about the bed though is it's got this seam here. I thought this was only over there on that side, but it is here as well. It looks like somebody cut out a section of the box. And what's concerning is back here, it's only about an inch off the rear of the frame. If I recall correctly, that should be about 5 inches off of there. So that is a bit concerning. The length of the box itself should be about 7 feet 3 inches, if memory serves correct. So I don't know if somebody just liked even numbers, so they cut out 3 inches of this or what, but that is a little bit concerning. The gentleman I bought it from said that he thought it was about an inch short, and he actually has a section kind of the side wall here cut out of another bed. So technically, if we need to correct this and extend it, we've kind of got a template and some filler that we can graft back in here if we need to get it to the correct length. But definitely something to keep track of, because that's going to affect everything in terms of how our fenders line up, all of that sort of stuff. So a little bit concerning, but not the end of the world. Looks like this goes all the way down here. It's pretty messy on this side. Looked like they'd done it a little bit cleaner on the other. As you can see, we got the visor over there, not the greatest shape. They do remake those, so not concerned about that either. Let's take a peek at the engine here. So everything seems to be here, mostly complete. Got an original Zenith. Seems like it at least moves there. Choke is a little bit sticky, but it does move as well. Now I tried to turn over the engine, but couldn't get quite enough torque on this belt. Just wants to kind of slide on there, pretty loose. Tried to put the hand crank in, but it's not really lining up with the pulley. And you can just barely make out that the spring is pretty collapsed there at the front. So not sure if we got some other issues here that's kind of keeping this engine from being lined up, or if it's just because those springs have given out in time. Inside the distributor here, seems to be pretty clean. Looks like someone put in a new rotor there, and probably even new points at some point, but they've just sat for quite a while. Got some bugs hanging out in there now. Should clean up really nicely though. Looks like they also pulled out the original kind of security wire there for the distributor. Just kind of put in the little aftermarket ones. Looks like it didn't have a pop-out switch inside, so Kind of nice, a lot easier to troubleshoot this way. Looks like the paint is just kind of peeling off, but everything seems to be there. Go take a peek on the other side. So as you can see over here, we got the generator still in place, got the starter over there. Looks like it's got an old school kind of safety fuse installed as well. Everything seems to be here and in good condition for the most part. We got the coil, all the wiring. Doesn't look like anybody's really hacked this thing up. Obviously our hoses here definitely need some attention. Those are pretty weathered and cracked. We will not want to run this for very long once we get it going. Let's see what we got for oil here. Yes, there's definitely oil on the stick, but it looks a little wet in other areas, which makes me wonder if we got water in there. We're not just pulling it up in water and then pulling it through oil. So we'll definitely want to drain all of that to get some fresh oil in this thing if we can get it to actually turn over. I did try on that fan belt and it seemed pretty dang stuck. That's what I was trying with the hand crank, but can't get things lined up. So we'll have to try that for another day. So yeah, now it's time to head inside and look at all the other goodies that came along with it. So I moved inside the garage here and just started laying out all the little small odds and ends that came with this truck. Now, if you've ever considered putting a AA Express together yourself, you've looked around for like the box, the fenders. If you look hard enough, you might be able to find them. They're not that terribly difficult, but it's all the small little things like this that are just a nightmare to find. Extremely hard, and that's what makes this particular truck just so unique, finding everything here together. So let's just go through this all right quick here. We've got to have our Ayuga. Got an old school original style horn there. It's missing the actual label, so I'm not sure what type this is. They made so many different horns that I'm terrible at identifying all the nuances and differences between them all. We've got the two commercial headlights here, which are starting to get a little bit harder to find. The rings look to be in pretty good condition. The glass is all nice and good there. Should clean up really, really nicely. And like I said, they're getting a little bit harder to find, but the actual bodies look to be in really good shape. The reflectors are there as well and seem to be in fairly good condition as well. They do make repops of those. Sometimes they're not quite as shiny as if you can clean up originals. So probably keep those around just in case. This box here, mostly just lug nuts and some other assorted little hardware. Nothing too crazy or too unique over there. Over here on the left, we got this really cool old school capital A's of Sacramento, like rubber mats. Not really sure what they were used for. The gentleman said that he did pick the truck up out in California around 30 years ago. So maybe whoever he bought it from was a member of that club. I do believe they're still around, and I think they're one of the oldest like A groups out there in California. So pretty cool to see that. Here we've got a genuine Ford parts sign. Clearly not that old since it's got plastic over the top of it, but pretty neat anyway. I'll probably try to clean that up, just hang it up in the garage somewhere. Got the missing hubcap there. Those are getting a bit harder to find in good condition. So it's nice that this is there. Looks to be pretty good overall. Just a little bit of a dent there where the Ford script is, but should be able to probably get that straightened out, clean that up, reuse it without any problems. Now this is some of the hard to find stuff here. We've got what appear to be like 3 D2 revision rear fender brackets. 2 of these are nice and straight. Look to be reusable exactly as they are. And this third one here looks like it's seen better days. Pretty bent up. The angle on it, as you can see, is not quite as sharp here near the end as this one. So it can probably be salvaged as it is. A lot of times people just don't know what those are, throw them away, and they get lost. Very hard to find those. I believe in 28 they came out with like a D3 revision, which was a stamped steel brace, and then they used those 2 interchangeably through the remaining years. So pretty sure we can just use the 2 good ones. They'll be period correct, work for us, no problems. Got some kind of lug nut adapter here. Looks like it has smaller size for I think the 28, 29s, and then the bigger size I think was the 30s. I think this is a front bracket of some kind, or maybe not even for a entirely. But these little guys here are extremely hard to find. So these are the little filler panels that go in here and kind of follow the contour of the bed. They kind of angle backwards and they just fill in the space between the fenders, the splash apron, and the rail of the bed itself. And both of those are there. They're in really good condition. Extremely hard to find. When the weather changes, I'll probably make some molds out of those, out of fiberglass. Probably make some repops. Maybe even see if I can make a pattern out of these. They're pretty thin. See if I can knock out a couple of just homemade replacements here, just because they're so rare. Then here we've got that spare tire carrier I was talking about outside. The frame mount, the little hub carrier, whatever you want to call it, with the little disc mount on it as well. As you can see, this one looks considerably shorter than the one outside, so let's measure this up right quick. Alright, so I got the handy tape measure out here, and I believe the proper side carrier kind of arm there should be about 12 inches and a quarter. So let's try to measure this out and see approximately what we get here. So that's about what it seems to be. Not the greatest, most scientific measurement here, but just kind of trying to line it up. Looks to be right around 12 and a quarter, and it's obviously a little bit more rusty than the one out there, but how thick all that metal is, all that stuff should clean up really nicely. We can put that back on the truck, take that wrong one off of there. So this also came with as well. This is a universal tire tool made by a company out of Benton Harbor. And I believe this is not correct for a AA. The gentleman said that this was for splitting the rings, but I think that's more for like the TT style wheels and stuff like that, so probably won't work for us. Over here, got an old school screw style jack. Not sure if that's correct for this particular year or not, but looks a lot similar to what I've seen for the 30 AA's, so maybe it is. Back here, all of the tie straps for the bed itself. That's getting harder and harder to find. Then this portion here is what I was talking about earlier, which is that extra section of box. Let's measure that up. This to be about 11.5 inches. So depending upon how short our box is outside, we could potentially use this to just kind of graft it together, get us to about where we need to be. So let's measure this box while we're out here. And if memory serves, and I don't lose a finger trying to do this, I believe these should be 7 feet 3 inches. So there we go. We've got 7 feet at the 84 there. Tape measure ends right around 87, so that appears to be correct. It did come with fenders. We'll go take a look at those here in a second when we go back outside, and we'll also measure up the box to see just how short it actually is. So here we have something that you just don't see very often. 5 AA express fenders in the same location. So I've got 2 matching pairs, and I've kind of got this oddball driver's side one over here as well. Now these are all what appear to be D2 revision, so this should fit 28 through 29s. And my 30 there, the one that I have so much trouble finding with, the difference is right here. This splash apron, this little radius is much sharper on my 30 than these kind of 28, 29, and I think even early 30 styles had. And they're extremely hard to find. I keep looking for them, and that's why I just keep ending up with all these other ones. I just can't bring myself to modify them just yet. So I found this pair here in the middle, these black pair, a couple of years ago for my 30. They're in really good condition overall. Really nothing wrong with them. I think there was just like 1 or 2 splits where, there we go, where some of the bolt holes came together. But other than that, Very, very good condition. This one here came with the truck, and it is in just incredible condition overall. Like no dents, no dings, no cracks anywhere whatsoever. Just beautiful shape. These two here as well came with the truck. We've got another driver's side that appears to be in pretty good condition. Rotted out here just a little bit at the front. Nothing too terrible. Over here on the back, got a little bit of some cracking issues going on there. Nothing too severe. For the passenger side, however, the one that came with the truck was in a lot more beat up conditions. Got a big tear right here, starting to get really thin along this edge of the seam. All this can be repaired. It's definitely not beyond salvageable, and for how rare and hard to find these things are, still pretty good condition as opposed to what you find some of them. I've got another pair in my basement that are pretty much from the front there, the end about here, they're so rotted out. And I just kind of picked them up thinking I would maybe just piecemeal some earlier fenders together and make something that works, but I've got 3 really good solid fenders. Again, my goal is to try to get some fiberglass molds made out of these. See if I can just make some simple repops, especially for my 30, because I don't want to cut these up. They're so rare, so hard to find. I'd rather wait until I can find the correct one or just cut up and modify on the fiberglass. So we've got some fenders for this thing. Probably going to end up using the black pair there in the center for this particular truck. I'll keep a hold of this one here. Maybe try to fix up the other set over there. Maybe move those on down the line and sell those off. But for now, definitely should have good fenders for this thing. Very, very hard to find them. So I've got my tape measure out. Let's go ahead and measure this bed. Just using the old eye gauge, I can tell it is definitely shorter than the one on my other truck. And yep, by far, it's not even out to 7 feet. Looking there, it's about 3.5 inches shorter overall. That is pretty significant. Now, I'm not too worried because we have that section we can graft in there, but there's these support ribs that we have to be mindful of as well. If you remember on that piece, it was about 11 inches, but it has that vertical bar in it there, so that's going to limit on how much we can use without having to get into metal fabrication work itself. But I do believe we'll be able to get this thing back out to the length it needs to be. It's going to be just a little bit of work, but nothing too severe. This box is pretty good overall other than that, so it is definitely worth trying to fix it up, get it back to that appropriate length. And thankfully the gentleman was smart enough to find that piece, and I think that will do the trick. So while I've got my tape measure out here, let's just go ahead and confirm what I already know, and that is that I believe this is about 15 inches or so, and sure enough is exactly what it ends up being. So that just confirms that this is supposed to be mounted on the front driver's side, which would put the wheel up by the front door fender region. So I'm not too concerned because we do have the correct one for this and all of those spare parts. I'm not sure if I'll end up modifying this one or just kind of move it on down the line as it is. It's getting hard to find original parts, so maybe I'll just leave that one alone and just ignore the fact that I don't have one for my 30 AA, because again, the bolt pattern isn't going to match anyway. So maybe we'll just leave this one as it is, but it's good to know. So that's going to do it this week here on the AA. I am going to get to work almost immediately on this thing, trying to see if I can get it to run, get it to roll, because I need to get it out of this space. So if you like Will It Run videos, I'm sure this one is going to be a challenge. Tune in next week and I will see you then. Thank you all so much.